settle, and then we may do part 2 next week, depending on how much we cover today. The title of the topic is Escaping the Reality Illusion. So, you know what I like to do? I like to ask you guys, what do you think? That's right. So, first here, whichever you like, reality. What does it mean to you? When you hear the word reality, what comes to mind? Who's a good scribe who can write nicely? Good penmanship. No, any of you writes well? Whoever. You can. So that way I can pay attention to you. Alright. So you have to capture it. Not the sentences, just single words of things. So what comes to mind when you hear the word reality? Truth. Very good. Okay, keep going.
What's happening in the present?
What's happening now? Okay. Other figure. Because mathematics not only shows beauty but the truth.
Reality is something when you remove all your fears and all your limitations.
So tell him in a way that he can write something. Free of fear and limitations. Can you explain that?
What I feel is like...
just because we're writing it down doesn't mean that it is true. We just try to get a sense of how people think about it. Go ahead. Objective. Very good. What is not fake? No, you just write. I'm joking.
See, what I feel is that we are all bounded above by your illusional feelings like fear.
You're not allowed to use the word illusion because that's here. Okay, go ahead, speak.
Okay. Relations, they are also bondages. So we have always a concern that I'm going to get someone. We have a fear, we have a want. So all this make us away from reality. They make us think that we are into some fake world.
Sight.
Sight.
Yeah, because a lot of many people think that the only real thing is what you can see, what you can, like what's tangible.
So reality, you mean sight?
Not necessarily. It can. At some
So sight, meaning
Or
if people see
feeling.
something that's real.
feeling,
Okay.
feeling it or seeing
So
it.
how? Okay. Is that capture? Okay. What else?
Perception. Reality is just perception.
Just
for
a
me,
perception.
there's nobody, but a person might have an imaginary friend, and for them it's pretty real. So it's a perception.
Yeah. What does it mean to you? I'm not asking what it means
For
to
me,
someone else.
reality is like a perception.
Oh, for
What-
you also.
Yeah, what I perceive to be real is real for me. That's what I
Okay.
mean to say.
So perception. Good point.
I can put it this way. What we see with eyes is an illusion. What we see with mind is a reality. Is that true?
What you see with the mind is reality. What you see with
eyes
what you see with the eyes.
is an illusion.
Someone raised its name.
Couldn't the reality also be something that is tangible?
Tangible. Explain.
I guess in the sense that you can use all of your senses to interact in your environment. So I guess that could be reality.
Got it? Sorry?
Tangible.
Yeah. Okay? Illusion. What do you get? David Copperfield?
Assumptions.
Assumption. Dream. Don't think too much. Whatever comes to mind, just speak it out.
Something.
You guys have a tendency to analyze. So don't analyze. Just when you hear the word illusion, what comes to mind?
Mirage.
Mirage.
Ignorance.
Ignorance. Very good.
Manipulation.
Manipulation. We have so much contribution to illusion. Thoughts. Thoughts.
Stole my word.
Take away his chance. So, mirage.
Problems.
Problems.
Endless.
That problems are an illusion? Or what? What's the word problem comes to mind?
Endless.
Endless. Oh, I forgot to introduce them. My very good friend, Dr. Krishnamurthy is here. He's a faculty member at IIT National Center for Food Safety Technology. Right. He makes things that when you put in your microwave won't blow up. His office is near Midway Airport. Happens to have just met him. Oh, did you know we're going to be here? No.
I also have office upstairs.
You also have an office upstairs. Well, thank you for joining us. Anything else?
Without a pattern?
Without pattern. Reality has pattern?
Yes.
On the other hand? That's how you... Kandaswami, something.
Comfort. Comfort.
Comfort.
Temporary.
Really like to dig into it. How to use it.
That's okay.
Yeah, okay.
Sometimes when you are under the illusion of something, it makes you feel comfortable. You don't want to lose you. You don't want to get away of your comfort
That's
zone.
thoughtful. That's right. He said temporary. Someone said endless. And someone said temporary. It might be temporary. It feels endless. Although it is endless, it's comforting. But it's all a mirage anyway. And all started off with some assumptions. Okay. All right. Can you erase this one? The idea here is that we operate with two levels of reality in general. One is what's called relative. This is not the brothers and sisters, not like that. Relative. And then others absolute. Okay. In the and most of us, pretty much all the time, operate in the relative realm. The absolute realm is not accessible. It's not that it's not tangible. It's not that it does not exist. It's just not accessible. So the relative realm is that one thing has to be, for one thing to be true, it has to depend on something else to be false or also true. For example, if I am in this room, it also means I'm not somewhere else. So everything is relative. And our sense of reality, mostly for pretty much almost all of it, is based on this realm. Or we understand this one. Everything here is relative. relative has certain features to it. One, that it is temporary, naturally, because it's relative. Something is true for me may not be true for you. Something that's true now may not be true later. For example, it's a very nice day today, but yesterday it was 30 degrees cooler. It's not the same thing. It changes. What is true for one may not be true for another. What stays may not. It's changing. What's true now may not be there later. And what we have as conscious beings is certain tools. And these tools allow us to understand and perceive this relative realm. We discussed this a little bit when Adaba was talking. We have five senses. Okay? Should we make a list? You guys know this. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. These are the five senses. And then we have, these are five, we say, gross senses. And then we have three subtle senses. You know what these are? Mind, intelligence, and something that's called ego. We also have five what are called working senses. It doesn't mean that these five are not working. These are called knowledge acquiring senses. In Sanskrit they're called jnana indriya. You acquire knowledge about the realm, whatever realm you're operating in, through these five senses. And there are five working senses. You know this list? Go ahead. Go on, go on. Okay. Then for these five senses, there are what are called sense objects. Actually, these senses have to come in contact with something, correct? That is in this realm. So each of these senses has a corollary sense object. So you want to take a guess of what is the sense object for the eyes?
Sight.
Yeah.
Yes.
The ears?
Sound.
The
Smell.
nose? Not air.
Smell. Touch.
And if you notice, we use 5, 5, 10, plus 5, 15, plus 3, 18. To understand what's around us. Now, there are 5 things that are missing here. We're going to add to this list. For these senses to come in contact with these sense objects, we need 5 elements that facilitate it to happen. So everything with our eyes, if I look at something, or with my nose I smell something, my ears I hear something. All of that is facilitated by the 5 elements that are around us. So the 5 elements are?
Earth, wind,
Before air. I'm going in a particular order. It's a descending order of subtlety. Fire, air, and say ether or space. And in Sanskrit it says akash, sky, space. So this whole relative realm is made up of these constituents. Now I'm only talking at the gross level right now. The eyes, go around this. It's actually like this. The earth corresponds to the skin, because by skin, or within the sense of skin, there is the sense of touch, form, all of that. Sound corresponds to ether. Ether is the medium for sound. Sound travels in space. So, you have examples of sound traveling through space?
Radio waves.
Yes. Yes or no?
Yes.
So only half the heads are shaking. Yeah. Give me an example.
Radiation. This technology.
We dial a number, sound waves go up, transferred back to the number like this. Okay. Another sound traveling through vacuum is you tell someone something, it doesn't make any effect and it comes out. It's a joke. It's not. But we have experience and we use it in all varieties of technologies where sound travels through space. Air. The sense corresponding to air is what?
Smell.
Nose.
Oh,
Because in air can take sound and there is a sense of touch actually. Then fire. Fire has vision because you can see form. Air you cannot see. Correct? But air you can touch. Then water.
yeah.
Taste. And earth. Smell. Because in earth there is fragrance. Otherwise you can without that earthly substance you cannot have fragrance. So anyway, how do we perceive this world through our mind? What does the mind do other than take us on the trip? The world of imagination, perception. We talked last time. Idea of imagination, perception is necessary. Why do we need this? We'll come back to how we use these senses. Then there's intelligence. What is the function of intelligence? How do you know if someone has intelligence? Well, first of all, before we get, how do you know someone has a mind?
Response to some stimulus.
How do you know someone has a mind?
Self-aware.
Boy, in that case, our parents think you're all mindless.
Somebody's always thinking.
Somebody's always thinking. No, the symptom of mind is a thought, desire. So what's the symptom of intelligence? How do you know someone has intelligence? You haven't met any intelligent person?
Expressing that thought.
One could express the thought, one could express it anywhere.
Restraint.
Just the ability to express is not intelligence. But there is a function of intelligence. Most of you have written some exam, right? for those who are coming from outside the US, we have written either a GRE or a GMAT exam. Okay? For most who go to college here, will have to write an ACT or something. True? In one of the sections of those exams is certain things where they do logical reasoning. If A and B situation is C true.
Cognitive ability.
Cognitive abilities, more specifically to discern patterns, to discern certain trends. You know, we have graphs in our GRE exams, and we have all these questions, and then there are all these graphs, and they ask us questions on the basis of these graphs. What percentage is this more than that? How much is this more? It's just the ability to discern. And how does ego help us? To understand ourselves in the relative world? Identity. We have an identity in this world. Right? That was the first discussion. And the second one, when we say I am, we have an identity. I'm American, I'm Indian, I'm a woman, I'm a man, I'm a student, I'm a professor. These are all our identities. And these are necessary because I identify myself and I identify someone else. He's a man from India or something, young, etc. So these are necessary to operate within this world. Why are all these relative? Key point change. They change. But what we discussed yesterday, right? Not yesterday, last week. We go from one situation to another situation. One situation to another situation. I'm a student today, and maybe a year later, I'm not a student anymore. So that reality has changed. I may be happy today. I may be happy now. I may not be happy the next moment. I wish I could say today. Things change like that. So what is true now may not be true later. Or my happiness is dependent on something else. Great weather, I'm happy. Dull weather, I'm morose. Good money, I'm happy. No money, I'm not happy. Good grades, I'm happy. Not good grades, I'm not happy. Many friends, my Facebook has many friends, I'm happy. My Facebook has no friends. Force myself to get added as a friend somehow. So it's all relative, changes. So we operate in this relative world. Now, there's another issue with these senses. The senses that we have we operate in this world with these characteristics. First is the senses are limited. This is important. Okay? Our senses are limited. Anyone, any ideas of how our senses are limited? Let's take eyes. How are our eyes limited? Well, not only can you only be used for vision, even the vision is not perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Have to have correction now. 8. They have to be corrected. Okay? Hold on. Let me finish. When I give time for questions, you can start. So the eyes are limited. Or defective. They can make. Another is our ability to discern light, or what we can see. We cannot see ultraviolet and infrared. Right? In the visible spectrum, we're limited. About the ears, same thing. Limited. So because we are limited, there is a high likelihood that we could make a mistake. limited, make a mistake, illusion. And that's the topic for today. We make a mistake because we can come under illusion with these senses. For example, the whole idea of refraction, right? It's a phenomenon in physics that we learn. Put a spoon in water and the spoon looks bent. Spoon really bending? No. But we think it's bending. Or the effect of parallax. Parallax is, I look at the moon on a full moon night and it looks like it's hanging right over Herman Hall. Because light travels in straight line and the depth of vision doesn't allow me to sense that it is millions of miles away. It feels like it's right over Herman Hall. I can come under illusion. I cannot figure certain things out. I can make a mistake, etc. And the fourth, this is what the Vedas gives in it. I have a tendency to cheat. Tendency to cheat means with limited senses, while I can make a mistake and I can come under illusion, I profess that what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what I'm touching, smelling, tasting is true. I'm convinced. That's the cheat. And I convince others that this is true. When I was young, Kalyani's age, we used to have a little cartoon on TV. It was the blind men, 6 blind men and the elephant. You ever seen that? Yeah? You ever seen that? Okay. So, there were 6 blind men. And they were walking along a path. And they happened to come across an elephant. Now, they don't know what it is. So, one of the blind men, he touches the trunk of the elephant. And he says, whatever this thing is, it's like a hose. Another man touches the tail of the elephant. And he says, I don't think it's like a hose, it's like a rope. A third person touches the leg of the elephant. And he says, it's neither a hose nor a rope. It's a pillar. Like that. Another person touches the ear or something. But, so these blind men, they're touching different parts of the elephant. And they have a sense of what the elephant is. Now, who's right?
All of them.
All of them. Who's wrong? All of them. Because the elephant in one side is like a hose, at one end is like a rope, somewhere else it's like a pillar. So none of these persons has a full picture. We only have a relative picture. We have only a part of the picture. But each is convinced this is how it is because that's what I'm touching and that's my perception. So that's the cheating mentality. Convinced. Not open to the idea that whatever my sense of reality is, there could be a whole other thing operating there. Like 2 friends, especially in gossip. In gossip circles. I'm convinced that's what she said. I'm convinced that's what he said. No, that's what is true. I'm sure she was thinking like that. I'm sure he was thinking like that. We don't even know. But we're convinced. We're convinced because we take a circumstance and we interpret that circumstance. Nobody used the word interpretation anyway here. So, these senses are necessary, but they give us limited truth. In Sanskrit, this is called pratyaksha pramana. Pramana means to have some conclusive proof or evidence. So through our direct perception, this is called direct perception. We get only limited truth. So thankfully we have something else to sort of fill in the blanks. From direct, there is deductive. Sometimes you don't see something. So suppose I saw black smoke over Herman Hall. That is Herman Hall. Okay. Even if it were not many of you will know. If that was Herman Hall, and I see black smoke, what's my conclusion? There's fire. I don't see fire. But I have a sense of cause and effect relationship. That's what I'm deducting. Deducing, sorry. I'm deducing there must be fire. So the mind and intelligence allows me to get a sense of cause and effect. And these are direct. However, is it necessarily true that just because there's some black smoke there must be a fire? And everything that I deduce, is it necessarily true? No, I can deduce wrong things. I deduce wrong things because I have a predetermined sense of cause and effect, and I make certain assumptions. And I make assumptions because I am in ignorance of the actual truth. I don't know. I don't know if there is fire or not. Black smoke, people running out, maybe there's fire. Or the fire drill. There's no fire. But I deduce, whenever I hear that, there should be fire. So what to do in this realm that we have all these tools here, but we don't even get the complete picture of the relative truth. What to speak of, we didn't even touch on the absolute. So what it means is, in this world, as we use our senses, the mind and intelligence, the sense objects, the working senses, all of this, we're operating on a certain level of truth. It's not complete. It's also not eternal. And one of the biggest culprits for that is this. Because we have a wrong sense of identity. Our identity is very much on the basis of this body. Now, I'm going to start something for now, but I'm not going to continue. It's already 2 o'clock. I'm going to say something and we'll take it next week. Then we can have some discussion, questions. To understand this relative world, there is a system by which we gather all this knowledge and information. In this relative realm, it's called the ascending system. Ascending system of knowledge means I start either with an assumption or a set of assumptions. So I'm using my mind and intelligence. Then I gather data that either supports or violates my assumptions. This gathering data means gathering experience. So we may use any of our knowledge acquiring or working senses. And then when we gather data, we either accept or reject our assumptions. Sometimes we use the word hypothesis. Isn't this what we do in school? Our whole statistics, our whole research, everything is based on this. Correct? Now, in accepting or rejecting my assumptions or hypothesis, it's not statistics class, but you get the idea. On what basis do I accept or reject? Anyone take a statistics class here? No one else has taken statistics? Raise your hand if you've taken statistics. So, I look at my data, if 95% of whatever data seems to fall within what because I'm simplifying it, don't take the statistics, I'm saying it in simple English, 95% at least, then I will accept my hypothesis. If I have more than 5% error, I might reject my hypothesis. Now in statistics, there are some errors. We call them this is the beta error, this is the alpha error. Or one of them. One of them is beta, the other is alpha. Alpha errors are more expensive because there is something true and you reject it. Then you build your whole experiment or validation on a wrong set of assumptions. Right? So the idea is we are taking a chance, a risk. And most of the times we decide whether I can live with this risk or not. But I still don't know the truth completely. I'm risking something. I have some sense of it. I've looked at my data, and about 95% of the time, it seems to be all right. So I'm going to live with that 5% risk. Get the idea? This is how it is. And we build our whole world of technology, world of science, everything in this thing. Which means we're always living with some error, there's some risk in that truth. So what happens is few years later, someone else comes and says, oh, hold on a second. Maybe we need to readjust these assumptions. And then they build their own model, theory, whatever. And that is professed as true. No, this is however. They may use the language as perhaps, maybe, there seems to be evidence, which is a nice way of saying we're convinced that that's true. Someone might say, no, you didn't gather the data properly. We have to gather the data differently. Someone else may. So this is always going on. So what is happening is, I want to go from here to New York in a more visual picture. I want to go from here to New York. Okay? I have no idea where New York is. That's where I'm starting. I'm making some assumptions and hypotheses. So I say, well, let me walk in the direction north. Then I gather some data. I have some sense of what New York might look like. Okay. I'm not sure if that's what the case is or not, but I'm assuming that was it is. Is this New York? No. Okay. I walk south. I reach Huntsville, Alabama. Is this New York? I don't know if they'll feel insulted or something. Then I walk a little east, trying to get a sense of walking west. This is how the ascending system works. To figure out where we are. One of the examples, Christopher Columbus. He set out looking for India. He landed where? United States. He didn't know what India looked like. He had no idea. He had some sense of where, and then he just set sail. Landed here. Discovered America by accident. For example. Of course, now it's the land of opportunity. Maybe not, depending on the economy. So, and that's what we do in school as well. So we come to a university system where the purpose of having a university system is to be able to find the truth. But the methodology we are using is questioned. We call it research. And we spend a lot of money researching. And in one sense, we like it because it employs all of us. Correct? It employs us. And So we like this system because if Krishna found the truth after he did his research, then there's nothing left for me to do. So he graduates and goes away and he gets some idea of the truth. He writes up some assumptions. He makes up a few papers. We take that and the next student does research. And they may come to some different conclusion. It's a very nice research. Very nice. But we're still finding the truth. We don't know. In any of your research papers, do you write, this is absolutely conclusive. There is nothing else beyond it. If you write that, you're fired. What do you say, Professor? Do you conclusively write what you have found? You can only say, there is evidence. I spent all my years doing marketing research. You could never say it. You don't know. You don't know how the data was collected. There was so much problem in data gathering. We used to spend hours and hours agonizing how to collect data. You could collect the wrong data. Because your instrument is not right, the collector may not be okay, the environment is not okay, the sample is not right, the sample is not sufficient, whatever. You could, after doing everything nicely, you could collect really garbage data. But the beauty of statistics is that even with garbage, you can always write something nice. You can say average this, median that, standard deviations like that. You can come up with something. It's not true. So here we are trying to understand truth. That's the fundamental feature of science. I want to know truth. We're working with limited, possible to come under illusion, mistakes that happen. So we can't access truth. Even within the relative realm, we're groping in the dark for what is truth. Then what to speak of topics that are in the absolute realm? To talk about soul, the existence of soul. The topic of, use the word supreme, God. And these are all absolute realm, means they are not temporary. They are not dependent on another truth for them to be true. How do you access this whole realm? If for even this realm, the relative realm, our ascending system is fraught with some defect, something is limited. You understand? So many people say, oh, here, there is no soul. And some of the excuses or statements, it may not be excused, but it's just be out of ignorance. I don't know what happens after that. Who's seen? Has anyone seen what happens after that? Have you seen the soul? We just, in this short discussion, said just because you see something, as Amina was saying, just because you see something doesn't mean it's true. Or just because you don't see something, it doesn't mean it's false. The spoon is bending in water. I'm very convinced water has a special ability. When you put a spoon in it, it can bend water. It can bend the spoon. So we're going to next week talk about another system called the descending system. How the descending system helps us understand truth without mistakes, without limitations, without the illusion. I'll tell you a joke in a minute. There was a person who joined a PhD program, and his PhD thesis problem was to figure out what is the effect. Oh, he wanted to write a PhD problem, so he didn't know where to start. So he was sitting in his lab, and he found a big cockroach, and he didn't know what to do. So he caught the cockroach, and he was feeling really bored and feeling a little frustrated. So while he was thinking what to do, he cut off one of the legs of the cockroach. And he dropped the cockroach on the table and said, "Now run." The cockroach struggled a little bit. You know, how many legs does a cockroach have?
6, 8.
5. It's either 6 or 8. my senses are limited. I don't know. So he caught the cockroach again.
Oh,
and he
after
cut
cutting.
another leg on the other side.
Oh.
He dropped on the table and I said, run. So the cockroach actually struggled more. So like that, he took one, each time he picked up the cockroach, cut off a leg, put it on the table and said, run. So finally when he took all the, there was only one leg left, cut off the last leg, dropped the cockroach and said, run. Cockroach, I've come to a very good conclusion. When you cut off the leg to the cockroach, it becomes dead. You cannot hear me. I say that. So we can come to the wrong conclusions. Questions? Comments? Yes, ma'am.
So you told mind and intelligence are always working relatively.
Yeah.
Is it correct?
Correct.
So how can you make correct decisions?
Cannot.
You always cannot make.
Because suppose you take your mind and intelligence and you come out with the perfect, usually how mind and intelligence work is like this. We write out what's called decision map. I'm here, I look at what option, usually mind doesn't help us through all this, but generally this is what are my options. Correct? Then I say, if I take this option, what are the effects of this option? If I take this option, what are the effects of this option? If I take this, then I say, do I like this? Yes, but if I do this, what happens? Do I like this? No. Do I like this? Yeah, but then this has these problems. I like this one. I like this and this about it, but it has this problem. This is how this is decision maps. And then we write in mathematics, we have probability for how probable is this true, that this will be true. So by the time you're making this decision in this relative value, the whole set has changed. You understand? Once this has changed, all of this is useless. So why is probability so important? Because we're taking our chances. We're risking on the basis of what I know, what I think, what I can somehow with my mind and intelligence calculate something. I see a particular situation and I act. And the whole thing can change. Very simple thing is, I'm a student today and I'm looking at the job market. I'm looking at my friends and people that I know, whether they're getting jobs or not getting jobs, and I have a whole idea of how I'm going to plan my life. Fast forward. Things change like anything. For example. So, and this is for a very thoughtful person. How many thoughtful people do you know? I mean, some people are always thinking, but that's not thoughtful. We work on reflexive, we work on reactive. So the moment a situation happens, boom, we have to react. We don't even consider it. We don't consider anything because this is highly inactive. Very inactive, doesn't work. So we mostly operate on, someone said, stimulus and a response. Stimulus and a response. In few classes we'll cover what kind of stimulus, what kind of response happens, depends upon, within this relative realm, it's called the modes of nature. There is the, what's called the goodness, passion, and ignorance. Depending on which of these is influencing a person, their response will be different. Suppose someone said something insulting to us. Or let's not say insulting. Suppose my friend did not notice me ignored him. If I'm influenced with a mode of goodness, my response to that cold shoulder will be different. Versus if I'm influenced by the mode of passion, versus if I'm influenced by the mode of ignorance. My response to the same stimulus can be very different. So here's the problem. We have 5 senses, 5 sense objects, 5 working senses, subtle senses, 5 elements, and our daily words of nature. The whole thing is like this big, massive, moving, changing thing. And we're trying to figure out reality in all this. It's not easy. But we operate. We're okay, right? This is okay, okay. We're operating even on the basis of other limitations. Christina, right?
Caroline,
Caroline.
based on what you said about the assignment system, can we say that it's very much related to adjusting to situations?
Yeah, you could say. But by the time I adjust, my situation has changed. I have to readjust. My whole life is spent in just adjusting. One thing to another thing, one thing to another thing. Right? I don't get a chance to live life because I'm only adjusting. Right? So when do we live life? You're only adjusting. Some people say, hey, that's what life is all about. It's nothing but a series of adjustments. That's life. And they're convinced that that is life because I'm adjusting all the time. He's adjusting and she's adjusting. Hey, look around. Everyone is doing that, so it must be true. Suppose we're sitting here and suddenly we see all the students running as a mob. What's our tendency? Where are you going? I don't know. Where are you going? That's where we get caught in. Others are doing, I should also do. We used to call this the conveyor belt model, conveyor belt lifestyle. It's all and we say it's okay. Hey, what's wrong? He's adjusting, she's adjusting. I'm not supposed to do that. Well, that's okay. That's not okay. Because these things keep changing constantly. They're very active, the modes of nature. So the whole idea of spiritual life is to move from this realm and operate in this realm. Because in this realm, these three don't operate. There's no. Even if this is changing, I'm looking at it from this realm. So for me, the same adjustments, all that doesn't work anymore. Not me, for a person operating in this realm. So the whole idea of yoga is to go from here to here. That's the process. So why do we do this mantra? Because the mantra, this sound is not sound from this realm, but the Hare Krishna sound is from this realm. So you're unplugging from this moving, uncertain, indeterminate realm into the stable, real realm. That's why, great sages and saints, whatever happens, they're not disturbed by anything. There's a symptoms of person there, not disturbed, always happy, doesn't matter what's going on. But people here, happy for a moment, and the very next moment, changes. Yeah.
What are the features of intelligence?
What are the features of intelligence? One of the features of intelligence is discrimination. Discrimination means what's good for me, what's not good. Most people don't discriminate. Or discerning. Discern means I see my ability to see a pattern or recognize something. How many times have we done the same mistake again and again? Ask our parents, they'll tell us. Or ask our friends. Same thing. Why is it that we can't figure out? Too reactive. We can't recognize. Have to do things.
Isn't discrimination also a characteristic of ego?
It is because we have ego, this intelligence works in a particular manner. It does not mean that when you have true ego, discrimination goes away. There is discrimination even. The basis of discrimination is not on the basis of false ego. For example, right now, because I have a false ego and I identify myself as an Indian male, my discrimination is African American female, Hispanic female, Indian male, like that. Just on that factor. There are other factors that I am discriminating. Or this religion, that religion. Good, not good. It's all on the basis of false ego. But for a fully self-realized person, there is also discrimination. That discrimination works differently. That's a soul with an African American covering. This is a soul with a Hispanic, I'm just assuming Hispanic, covering. Soul with an Indian male covering. That's the discrimination. They can discriminate. This is material system. Our discrimination is all in this realm. We cannot distinguish this versus this. We are only distinguishing in this. So, for example, if I'm drowning in water, okay, and if I'm under the surface of water by 3 feet or 30 feet, does it matter? Can I tell someone, you're more drowned than I am? So, in the relative realm, we're making all these distinctions. I'm better than you. I'm good, you're better. Everything is in the relative realm. What value does it have anyway? Real discrimination is absolute versus relative. That's where the Bhagavad Gita begins actually. The first lesson Krishna gives is, hold on a moment. You're looking at this realm and making all your decisions. The real viewpoint is this versus this.
Intelligence should be always working in the absolute truth. Even though if our mind is...
Yeah, you cannot artificially. Unless you are here, you see this false ego? If you are operating on false ego, your intelligence will not work here. It will work here. If your ego is here, then your intelligence is operating here.
What about the mind then?
Everything is here. The senses are also spiritual. But what happens is, we don't enter this realm most of the time. We may approach this realm, but very soon we come back. So this is the phenomenon that goes on. Oh, I had such a good day today. I had such a terrible day. Way below the absolute graph. This is a graph of our mind and day, how things move. Certain times, when we have a great spiritual experience, we might come somewhere here and say, wow, what a day it was. But when we actually practice yoga properly, yoga does not mean wear spandex and this pose and that. That's not yoga. That's something else. I will not use that word. Like when we meditated the Hare Krishna mantra, we were entering this realm. Depends on where our mind is and with what idea of myself I'm reciting this mantra. So that will cover as we come to sending classes. Anything else?
So we have to operate our intelligence more rather than mind.
Right. We have to operate everything. But this is where the whole trick is. We always operate from a false ego perspective. Why is